when God tells you to do nothing. I don't know if you've ever been in a season where God literally is just silent and just the last thing he told you to do was just to rest or to do nothing. But for somebody who struggles with perfectionism and overperformance, it's extremely frustrating when God goes silent, or when God doesn't talk to you every single second of the day, or when God's final instruction to you at this particular season of your life is just to rest. And I recently went through this. I completed my first year of university, and it's a huge accomplishment for me because a year ago I was just in the worst position of my life. And for 4 years now, I've been living in complete survival mode. Like, I haven't taken a single day to rest. I haven't traveled not once. Like, I've just been a hamster on a wheel. I've just constantly been operating. And I have been through major life transitions. Like, I've literally moved, like, physically and mentally, and there's just been so many shifts and so many things that have happened in my life, and I have not got a second to pause and to stop. And although I went from a very horrible season to one of the best seasons of my life thus far, I haven't rested not once. And so when I finished my first year, I found myself being completely free. And though I am working this summer and, I will have things to do, I have 2 months to do absolutely nothing before I go back to work. And God called me to rest, and that was very stressful for me. But let me give you some background story. So towards the end of my university term, it was exam season. Winter semester is way worse than fall semester. I don't care what anybody says. It is so stressful. And on top of that, I was moving out of my dorm. So I was moving back to my hometown, which is 4 hours away from my university. So I had to pack up everything for my YouTube and stuff. I wasn't able to condense all my work back to my parents' home because I expanded and I grew so much that in my dorm I just had this full content creation space, and I wasn't able to shrink back to that old space that I used. So I had to schedule videos months and months ahead, and I really just had to grind and get work done. And when I tell you, the stress was just caking up on me, it was showing in my skin, it was showing in my habits, it was showing in my eating patterns. I was just so completely stressed, but I just kept pushing and pushing myself. One more thing to get done, one more thing to do, and then I'm done, and then I'm done. And it got to the point where on the day that I finished all my work and all my exams and I moved back home, physically the stress was leached onto me. It was the most, I can't even explain it, the most bulky feeling I've ever felt in my life. My muscles were tense, my joints were tense. I was just stressed, and it was just on my body. It wasn't just mental stress, it physically got my body to the point where I convinced myself that I was gonna get sick, have a huge fever the minute I got back home, because my body felt like it was about to collapse. And in that moment, God told me to rest. And I had a huge resistance to peace, which is what I realize it is now. I resisted peace. I felt like God was punishing me by telling me to rest. I felt like God was making me fall behind because he was telling me to rest. I'm like, but God, there's still things to do. I still have to do this. I still have to do that. And it got to a point where I was fighting with him about peace and resting. And I know that a big portion of this for me comes from my addiction to chaos, because peace is uncomfortable. When you come from a place where there's always been dysfunction, when you come from a place where there's always been chaos, where there's always been yelling and there's always just been dysfunction in that area, when you move from that place to a place of peace is the worst feeling ever. And it's so funny how our minds and our bodies react to things we've never experienced before. But when I had moved into my dorm, and it was just I woke up and it was just peace. I went to bed and it was peace. I was in my own space and it was just peace. I was living alone for the first time and I just felt peace. It was disruptive at first because it made me sit down with my thoughts. It was disruptive because I didn't have anything to complain about, and complaining became one of my favorite habits and hobbies to do, because it was comfortable to be in misery, right? Like the saying misery loves company, it is so true, because when we're miserable, a lot of times we just want to wallow in our pity, and then when peace comes along, we deny it, or we step away from it, or we hide from it, because peace in that moment feels confusing and peace in that moment feels uncomfortable. But when you rest and when you learn to rest, you're preparing yourself to rest when you're called up higher. And God really had to sit me down, and I just sat in silence, and he spoke to me and he said, how will you ever learn to rest when your life fully takes off if you can't rest right now in the small things? You're just getting started, and this is not even the peak of the things that you're going to experience, the peak of your productivity, the peak of how busy your life is going to get. And your life can get busy in a very successful and good way, but that doesn't mean that just because you're making money, you can't be tired. It doesn't mean that just because you've become successful, you can't require peace and rest. And so God told me the same way you strive when you're starting up is the same way you're gonna have to strive when you've reached the top, and you're gonna need to rest. There's no way I can get you to where you need to be without rest. You are going to burn out. And I felt like in that moment I was on the brink of burnout, but I was resisting the one antidote to help me and heal me from the burnout that I was experiencing. But when I learned to just rest in the peace of God and just learn that even though doing nothing feels lazy, it's actually one of the most productive things you can do when God is calling you to rest, I learned that in these tiny moments, I'm teaching myself that rest is okay. I'm teaching myself that I'm still worthy even if I'm not performing, that I'm still worthy of rest, that I'm still worthy of a quiet and peaceful environment even when I'm not staying busy. And it was just so beautiful when God told me, like, you want to get to this certain position, but if I can't teach you to rest right now, and if you can't learn to rest for even 3 days, even 7 days, when you reach that peak, you will reach it and then everything will crumble. And then God told me something so profound. He said, when everything crumbles, like the number one cause to death in people is stress induced. It's very much stress induced. When we think of how people die and how their bodies fail them, it's because of stress 99% of the time. And so God told me, if you want to keep letting the stress kick on, you will reach that point of success. You will reach that point of a certain tax bracket, but you will die because of stress, and your money will go to somebody who haven't worked a day in their life. And the Bible talks about this, and people talk about this all the time. And I'll try to put a verse up, but it talks about how a man labors and labors under the sun, but he doesn't eat the fruit of his labor, and it goes to somebody who hasn't worked a day. And I feel like that is so futile, and it's a complete chasing of the wind. It is the most heart-wrenching thing that I could even think about, to put all of your time and energy and sweat and tears into working and into laboring and into building something up, and because you didn't take care of yourself properly, and because you didn't rest, everything that you've earned, all the goodness, the fruitfulness of it, the enjoyment of the work of your hands goes to somebody who did nothing but rest. And you reward somebody else with the work of your labor because you're dead and you're not able to experience it. And I don't say that to scare you or to speak death over you, because I'm going to continue to speak life over myself. And God never told me that to scare me or to speak death over me, because all God can do is speak life. But that was life to me in that moment, because he was telling me that nothing is worth my life. And our bodies are our temples, right? And if God lives within us, then we need to take care of ourselves. And that includes physical health, not just mental health. And so if God is calling you to a season of rest, no matter how behind you feel in life, no matter how much things are on your to-do list or how many things you feel like you need to get done, you need to trust that God can push things back. You need to trust that God can push things forward for you. And if he's telling you to rest, trust and believe that it's for a good reason and that it's necessary. I am so grateful God told me to rest, and he also told me to get off of social media. And I'm telling you, like, I have never thought as clear as I do right now. I've never experienced so much just like relief and lightness. I've never slept so much as I'm doing right now. And it's just so important, because my body is now feeling better. And now I can finally, starting a new month, get back into routine and learn to incorporate resting in my routine. But I couldn't have rested fully unless I rested in God and gave my burdens over to Him. So if you feel like you have no clue where to start when it comes to resting, the best advice I could give you is to just lay down everything that's stressing you. Lay down your perfectionism, lay down your need to perform, and honestly, all you have to do is just give God that burden and you'll watch Him do the rest.